Yeah, I think we're ready to start then.
Yeah,
I don't have a gavel. Okay, I'm going to call the legislative discussion to order here. And I just want to thank everyone for being here. I just want to welcome everyone and start us out by saying it's a very special day that we're having a commissioner-led discussion, but it's also Jenna Rourke's birthday. So we all say happy birthday. I brought some treats. We have some chocolate almonds and some healthy snacks over here, so please feel free to celebrate Jen's birthday with us. I told her I wouldn't sing happy birthday, but anyway, happy birthday, Jen. Have a great day. So I'm excited about this commissioner-led discussion on the legislative session. So we'll start by going around the room and we'll all just introduce ourselves. I think we all know actually who's all in the room, but let's just do it as a matter of protocol. So,
yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, great, thank you. For the tape. So Raphael, you want to start? Because you're the one right there. We're going to have you start. Right, you start.
Very good.
He was there last time.
Raphael Ortega, District 5.
All right.
Victoria Reinhardt, District 7.
Jimmy Pettit, District 6.
Melissa Finnegan, Government Relations.
Jennifer O'Rourke, Government Relations.
Ryan O'Connor, County Manager.
Tony Carter, District 4.
Mary Jo McGuire, Commissioner, District 2. And Janet? Yeah.
Jen Caffey, County Manager Administration.
John Strickland, Communications, Public Relations.
Ron Isaacson, Public Works.
Carrie Collins, Community and Economic Development.
Joanna Berger, Deputy County Manager, EGCI.
Melissa Jamrock, Commissioner McGuire's office.
Matt Hill, Commissioner Carter's office.
Karen Francois, Deputy County Manager, Information and Public Records.
Sarah Swenson, Gov Public.
Josh Olson, Community and Economic Development.
Dan Roberts, Ramsey County Historical Society. Darren Tobel, Commissioner, Victoria Reinhardt's office.
You know that.
Wow, he got it.
Commissioner Gladys Castillo's office.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. I am really excited about this. I love commissioner-led discussions, so we can have conversations amongst ourselves about really important topics. And this is really for us to have a chance to talk about things that are happening and going to happen at the upcoming legislative session. I'm just going to start us off a little bit by just saying thanks to those of you that were able to attend and those of you that helped arrange, namely Jen and Melissa and Claudia, who helped arrange our Ramsey County delegation meeting on Friday. I thought it was a great meeting. We had, it's hard to get all the legislators to come, and we had a really good turnout of legislators, both House and Senate. And we're able to start the conversations, I'll say, because we all felt that we need more time. And we were there for an hour and a half, which was a long time to have legislators in the room, which I was grateful for. We had a number of our staff there to hear the conversations, and we all felt in our debrief afterwards, our legislative team met afterwards, and we thought it was important that we continue this conversation. In fact, it was noted at the actual delegation meeting that we wanted to continue that type of meeting. So we are working on setting up a meeting with legislators focused on the bonding meetings. And we can have it on any number of issues, but we thought our first one that we would invite legislators to would be around our bonding projects, because we did have a number of questions on them, and we didn't have a lot of time to actually really talk about them. So I think we're going to talk to Senator Sandy Pappas and Representative Leon Lilly and ask them if they would like to call together, just an informational meeting for legislators and us around our bonding projects. So I'm going to throw that out as an idea that we thought would help us to have just greater conversations with legislators, and ask what you all think of that. But also I'm going to open it up for Jen O'Rourke to give us a little bit of introductory remarks about our legislative priorities and a great sheet that she's put together that will help us track those things. And just to say thanks. It's the legislative session, as we know, is a really busy affair, and we're just grateful that we've got both of you down there working for us. So thank you for all of that. So why don't do you want to walk us through, and then I'm going to just open it up for us to have, I'd like to hear your comments on the legislative meeting, and then we'll take it from there on different topics that we want to highlight here. So Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could just start out with our delegation meeting and thank all of you who were around the table and in the room. I know Commissioner McDonough, you were the only one that wasn't able to come. We'll get you a packet after this meeting. But, you know, that's always a meeting that we want to include the staff and have them there for questions. We've enjoyed great turnout from you guys in the last 2 years that have been part of that. We are happy to have Ryan in the room as the county manager, and I think that means a lot to have all of you folks there with us in front of those legislators. I think they really kind of feel the power of Ramsey County and our agenda in some ways. I was a little disappointed that the meeting got started late because our chair was late, and we weren't able to even introduce staff, so I feel like I owe an apology email to our staff because we had close to 30-some staff in the room using their time and just really listening to that legislative conversation. But it's kind of a good example of the wide breadth of issues and how things are taken up at the Capitol and whatnot. The only other thing I wanted to point out is I think Ramsey should feel really good about the turnout that we get. You all know Kareem Murphy, who does my job for Hennepin, and he and I really enjoy comparing notes on just where things are at with our delegation and whatnot. And they held their meeting Monday morning. Out of 50 legislators, they had about 10 or 12 legislators show up, which is about 20% of their delegation. So
And
the fact that we get half, I think we should feel pretty good about that.
Showed up.
Is there anything you wanted to add in terms of it?
I only wanted to add one thing from my perspective, Madam Chair, and that was, I think, so this was a more ambitious package that you all approved this year going up to the Capitol than in years past. It was both more focused in terms of priorities and some single pages to help clarify, but also more ambitious in terms of the overall bonding ask and the number. It was interesting for me to hear legislators digest that, and I came away thinking that it was a really good approach to adopt a more ambitious approach. They're struggling with it. Commissioner Ortega mentioned that a little bit this morning. They're not all sure what to do with the ambition coming out of the Capital County, but none of them seemed fearful about it. And afterwards, I got a couple of positive comments about the appreciation in seeing the home county here bring forward some really bold ideas. And they'd always followed up with, I'm not quite sure how to, you know, and they would have answers. But that was illuminating because it was a little bit of a change for us to put together a package that totaled the number that it did. And it left me feeling bullish. So that's all I would share.
And I just want to highlight what Jen said too about our staff in the room. We always struggle with, should we have a lot of staff in the room or should we not? And you know, in a more robust discussion, which we all really wanted to have, and we did get started late, and you always, when you go around and you do introductions, it always takes longer than you think it should with legislators, and we love to hear from them as well. And so we just didn't get as much time as we wanted to actually get into some of these issues. And would have, if we had an issue that we needed some discussion on, it was good to have the staff in the room. So you know, we do go back and forth on having you know, all of our directors in versus not, and so we are going to be continuing to play with that. But I do apologize too. I do like it when we get to go introduce, and so they can actually see the breadth of the departments and all the dedication of our department heads in the room. And there was also an opportunity for our legislators to chat with some of our staff then afterwards, you know, so it gave them a chance to have conversations on some issues that they cared about. So I did notice that that was happening, you know, after the meeting. We had legislators and staff talking. So anyway, I'm going to open it up now to those of you that were there, and if you have any comments, and then we can start talking about some other, then we can talk about, I know there's a couple specific issues that we should talk about, and they revolve around some of our bonding projects. But Commissioner Reinhardt?
Sure. Well, I thought, overall, it went very well. It was a little frustrating.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get a lot of direction. It was like go around and say what your top priority is, and that's not just introductions. And so some took it further than that, and then we had the presentation that went really well, I thought. But there wasn't, everything was rushed.
Right.
And then there was confusion in my mind about, well, there was confusion in the room, period. It wasn't just in my mind, because Carolyn Lane was like, what? I don't know what just happened here. We elect the Senate side, but we don't do this side, and we used to adopt things. Anyway, so I think it was, probably because there had been a family emergency, and she came in and was kind of, I had not seen Rena, not in total control of things before. Anyway, so it just seemed a little strange, but we got what we needed. But even when, well, she said that we were gonna go until 3:15 and then we would have discussion, but then it seemed like we were gonna stop at 3:15. It was like, wait, we have another 15 minutes. And so even just trying to know when you could talk or how, everything felt kind of rushed. But the bottom line is, we got everything out there. Maybe not in the way we wanted to, but we got everything out there, and it did pique interest of the legislators who were like, wow, you guys are really being aggressive this time. And I was like, yep, yep, that we are. It was nice, and I'm glad that Chad is here today, that there was the call out for gifts and what was going on there. And so we touched on everything, but we didn't spend a lot of time. There wasn't a question and answer period at all, really. So I thought, I don't know, honestly, you can try to plan things differently, but whatever happens at these meetings happens.
Right.
So I wouldn't worry about it. I'd have the staff there and do what we did.
Do what we did. Yeah, I appreciate.
We get what we can out of it, but I wouldn't fret over.
Okay. I just appreciate that, because we do fret. I mean, I fret. I'll say, I
I know
want it to
you
be
do.
the best meeting that it can be, and I want everyone to feel like that was a great use of their time, and we work with our legislative delegation chairs. So then we say this is your meeting, but we'll help organize it. But then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want it to be your meeting. I want it to be my meeting. So because we knew we wanted a more of a question and answer and a flow, and she and Rena Moran, our chair of our delegation in the House, and Carolyn Lane, the chair in the Senate, they hadn't talked to each other about whether they were gonna have elections, and I didn't know that was gonna happen. We had met with Rena beforehand to talk about it, and so, you can do a lot of planning, and then it can go the way it goes, but,
It will do that no matter what.
yeah, and so, we do want it to be their meeting, but we are gonna call our next meeting. We think we're gonna have chairs call it, and it will be sort of our meeting, talking about our bonding projects, and, but we always want the legislators to feel ownership of it, so there is that balance. I mean, we do, it's our meeting, meaning ours and the legislators' meeting, so that was
That's what I'm
just
saying
part of
though, is that in the end,
Yeah.
we got the buy-in.
Yeah.
They got what they needed,
Mhm.
and they knew how to follow up. So,
Yeah, good, thank you.
don't fret.
Okay, Jen?
If I could just offer a comment on that.
Yeah.
For those in the room, we only have one Ramsey County bonding member, and it's Leon Lilly. And in the Senate, we have a few more. We have 4 people who touch Ramsey County. But our point in maybe offering a more casual meeting for both legislators and staff is so that they can kind of see a walkthrough of all of really kind of our bonding presentations, or our bonding bills, if you will, because we need a whole lot more people advocating for what we want to get done, and frankly what they want to get done too, that would end up on our Ramsey County score sheet. But that's why it would be nice to have a follow-up kind of meeting. And one of the formats that we Representative Moran and I kind of tossed around, we'll be talking with Senator Pappas about, and that's sort of the Pappas, Pizza, Parks, there's one other P meeting. But she has the last couple of years pulled together folks in a more informal setting to talk about the Metro Parks bonding money and kind of strategizing around that. And it's been a real, there's pizza at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and staff and legislators and county commissioners are invited. And it's kind of a way, like she has it in March, how are we gonna get through the next 2 months, kind of unified, just to get as much parks money as possible. And it's sort of a neat approach to bring people together. So I would just offer that up, as some of you have been there, something that works in a different format.
Thanks. Any comments? Oh, no, Commissioner Carter, sorry.
Okay, thank you. I was just gonna say that the best thing that happened is that we got our agenda before the legislators early. They were able to at least have an overview of what we're coming to ask for, and they were able to indicate support. And I thought it was really great that Leon, who started out and went around the room questioning our River's Edge project, had to come back around and apologize and assert how important it was, for not just us or for St. Paul, the center city here, but how important it is for the state, and that he was excited about it. So I really felt that was a big accomplishment. And I do think that we did put a more aggressive package before them than they are accustomed to, but that was a really good thing. It gives them something to get fired up about. It gives them a package that they can actually get to love with us and get to advocate strongly for. There was some confusion about the room initially, and so clearly we want to make certain that that doesn't happen again. And the agenda, wasn't really clear for all of them. And maybe that's something that we can learn. We have not typically had this big agenda go out. But if we can help our legislators by making certain that they have the agenda in advance and know exactly what's going to happen, then maybe we can avoid some of their internal questions about what is perhaps going to continue to be their meeting that we help big time with. But overall, I just thought that there was good energy for us there. And everyone agreed that we didn't have enough time. Mm-hmm. So if we have a second opportunity then, a second bite at the apple here to organize that next meeting, I think that can even be better, and that we can work together with them at that point to say, what are your expectations? Here's what we are going to do, and to get an agenda out in advance so everyone knows what's happening. But thank you so much. I realize that there's a lot of flurry going on as these things get started, the engine is getting going, and people are in different places and really trying to come together now to get their focus. And I think we helped with that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, Commissioner Ortega.
Let me just add to that. So first of all, I was surprised that, and I had, before we started meeting, Alice and I were talking, but she didn't do her typical critical analysis of our project.
Yes, I agree. You missed it, yeah.
Yeah, she did.
You see how
talk about the fact that she didn't have the right room.
But she didn't criticize our agenda so much, right?
And I'm being polite back.
Yes, you are. I love that.
And then when I was leaving, Leon Lilly came up to me, for what it's worth. But at least, to Tony's point, he changed his, he came up to me, he says, I think we could get some money for this River's Edge project.
All right, we got to push it more.
Yeah, so I think, to your point, that he started out here, and by the end of the day, he moved.
And speaking of Alice, because we know how she can not always be as supportive as we'd like of all of our things, I did appreciate that she didn't go right out and give her concerns. She had made concerns over River's Edge, but I think enough people have talked to her where she's gotten information that she's not openly critical of it, and I think she might even be supportive. But then, but she was really talking in favor of like Gibbs Farm and the second train. I mean, there's a number of our projects that she's really supportive of. So I mean, it was I noticed a bit of a change that way. Yeah, Jim, you missed that. It was a big milestone.
And the other thing is, the staff has done a real good job. I mean, I think, Jennifer, you probably have not, I mean, this one as well as any other one. It was fine. And the other thing is, Carrie and Josh did a very good job, but I think I think they make a good team, because as we've met individually with legislators, I think Carrie has become more ambidextrous in how to handle everybody. And I think she did a very good job in trying to hit the concerns of everybody, having already gotten a scan of people. So I think it all went well.
Yeah, really, thanks, Carrie.
I just wanted to say that Leon is not only a legislator in my district, but he's a really good friend. So if there is anything, in fact, he relies on me to bring things to his attention for Ramsey County. So he's got good relationships with everybody around this table, but he's been a friend for a long time. So if there is something that you need quickly, don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that, and we will just continue these conversations. We'll just keep courting our relationships with our legislators, and we all have really good relationships, and now we're just taking that next step forward of getting them to be supportive of our projects. And so I think part of this conversation, Jen, did you want to go over this a little bit now? Go over just a little bit more on this, but then I want to, because we have other issues, we have our big bonding priorities, and then we just have a few that I want to just bring up about our housing and our community corrections, just to talk about them a little bit. But as Jen's getting ready to talk about this, I want us to be thinking right about, okay, how are we working together as a county board on moving our issues forward when we're down at the Capitol, letting Jen and Melissa know we're down there, we've been down there, so they can add it to their sheet of who's we've talked to, and just that we're all working together on this, so that if you hear anything, if you hear something, say something. You know, if you hear anything from anybody or you talk to someone, let the team know so we can add it to the growing hopeful support that we're getting for these issues, or if we have any concerns, we can address them right away. So do you want to just touch on any of these? Or,
sure.
And if anyone else, if someone sees something they want to highlight, this would be the time now for us to sort of hash out any questions or concerns we might have on these issues, and that. So
I'll be real quick on this, Madam Chair. Melissa helped me out putting this together. This really is just sort of a status update, bill numbers and such, bill authors and such, really to stave off any questions really for purposes of this meeting. But a lot of our agenda when it comes to our bonding requests, except for River's Edge, was introduced last session, frankly. The Riverview corridor, the Rush Line BRT, even 35E and County Road J was introduced last year. So there's a lot of work to do in terms of taking bill jackets out and whatnot. Moving up the list to the RNE Center, as you guys probably all know, Sam Walseth and Rob Vanasek are under contract with the joint board, and great guys to work with. I've got the jackets right here right now because all the Washington delegation members have signed on, and we're filling in the cracks with more Ramsey County folks, but I feel like we're in really decent shape with that. As you all know, the new minority leader, Senator Kent, was at our meeting on Friday, and I happened to run into her in the hallway yesterday in the state capitol, which was great. But confirmed with her, she's hoping that between Ramsey and Washington, we could have one more tour just to kind of sweep up any of those folks, whether they be commissioners or legislators who haven't gotten to see it yet. So that'll be a pretty easy thing to organize. But knock on wood, I think we're feeling pretty good about where that is. It was included in the governor's bill. So as you can see from a sheet like this, there's 100 random factoids that we could educate you on any particular bill or project or policy area, leading down to the bottom of the page with the last 4 things that are listed on there. But we are here to answer any questions for you. And then if I could, Madam Chair, I think at some point we should come back and maybe do a deeper dive on River's Edge, and Commissioner Ortega could kind of talk about the many meetings we've had with legislators and where that all stands.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I said 2 things just as a bug as we were planning. One, St. Paul, from what Jen's heard, you can expound on this, has been talking out of the same kind of talking points and areas, and we're hoping to hear that. That's what I got an email yesterday just acknowledging that. So if you want to expound, you could on that. Second one, can you mention our capital pathways intern too?
Yes, thank you. On the Capital Pathways intern, a lot of you know the Citizens League program. They've created this really great program. It's in their 5th year. We're taking advantage of participating in that this year. But it really sets up a nice pipeline of getting young people of color into the Capitol scene, lining them up with somebody like a Ramsey County or another group or legislative office to kind of be the host for that. We have a wonderful young woman. Her name is Genesis Casero, and she goes to Hamlin. She's a senior. She's actually pre-med and is interested in maybe turning turning and going down more of a public policy lane. So our job this session is to show her, kind of take her around the Capitol. She'll be helping us with taking notes in committees, setting up meetings, maybe meeting you in the parking lot and walking you up to the super secret hearing room. Just kind of doing all the things that you hope an intern or another staff person can do. She'll be with us about 12 hours a week, so we're really excited about her.
I want to just talk about a couple of conversations I've had on we're going to get to River's Edge, but on the winter recreation area, because it did come up, and I'm doing some of this for Jim's benefit. You know, Coley, mentioned, like, I just don't get it, why we're supporting, this, and we didn't get a lot of time to talk about, that it's a no-cut sport at Central, that it really does reach communities of color, that, there's a great equity issue here. And so, we are going to be meeting with those legislators, and Nicole at the County Road H and 35E meeting got a question asked by a legislator, why is the winter rec area in front of County Road H? Because they saw J. H is in my area, sorry. H is on 35W, right, sorry, J, yeah. County Road J. And Nicole did a great job of saying, well, the winter rec area has been around, it's been a project of the counties for a long time, it's really to address, equity on the East Metro. And I mean, everyone felt like she, really addressed the issues of really, we support all these projects. And the fact that they're numbered, is part of the MMB project list, but really, as a county, they all address needs that we all have. But I understand, as the bonding committee told me, she did a great job. So answering that question. So it's just come up in a couple of different ways, and I asked Nicole, because she's not able to be here because she's doing the Vadnais Heights naming press conference right now, what she wanted to talk about here. And she said, well, I do want to know more about our lobbying efforts on what we are doing around the winter rec area. So it's just on I think we'll get Mark and the group that he's working with. She's got a lot of those advocates in her area, as I do in mine, and the schools, and we've got an ally in Representative Kelly Moeller on that. So I think it's just we all want to get this over the finish line this year. I mean, we all know that. I mean, we have so many really worthy projects here. We'd like to get that one off our plate. And anyway, she just mentioned that she's, supports all of our projects, of course, but she just wants more information on that one, and or wants to know how she can be involved in that. So I was asking Jen, what are our lobbying efforts around that? Are we relying on Mark McCabe and his department to do that, or it was just sort of something we're noodling about. So you want to, Jim or Victoria? I can't remember whose hand I saw first. Jim.
Not on this.
Oh, okay. Do you want to? We'll just finish the winter rec area.
If we are talking about this as an equity issue, I mean, quite frankly, it's not a whole lot different than a golf course. Yeah. It costs money, and we know that there are diverse groups coming to, it doesn't matter which golf course, but golf courses, and our arenas and the other things. Yeah. And so if we're gonna, we really need to back it up. We can't just say there's people from the East Metro, there's people, and because I think it was Coley that said, really, how much,
right?
How many people are going to be there?
Yeah.
So I think we need to back it up if we can.
And we do have those numbers, but yeah, we
well, and so I think it's about what our arguments are.
Yeah.
Because I think, it would be absolutely fabulous, and people from all over the East Metro would be able to participate in it. It's through schools, and schools obviously are diverse. There's so many different things, but I don't think we've done a good job of talking about that diversity.
And I think we will take that to heart, yeah.
Actually, we've done better than you're aware.
Well, that's not what I heard from Coley.
Well, maybe in certain spots, and maybe with Kaylee, but last year during the testimony, Chrissy, who runs a program out there, told the amazing story of the Somali dad running in a snowstorm with his 3 daughters on the cross-country ski course. And they show up every Saturday. Those stories are out there. They're being told. and relayed, and they're coming from the community. So they're there, you know, if we gotta do some
I think we may need to
extra
beef
work
up
with
this, as you're
individuals,
mentioning, we
but
should beef this up a little
That's what was a part
bit.
of the presentation
Yeah.
last year.
But you can, I mean, you know what it was like in that room
Yeah.
on whatever day we were there.
Yeah, Friday,
I
just
mean, it
Friday.
was pretty, there aren't any people of color that are gonna come to this. That's what she said.
So we have some, educating to do with her, so.
It was
yeah,
kind of-
Jen,
it
yeah.
was-
If I could throw out there, that's a really good example. Representative Her is not on the bonding committee.
Right.
And the exact reason you want to have kind of a meeting to bring people up to speed on those issues. I mean, to her credit, she asks really tough questions and really good questions.
Yes, she
Anything
did.
you go into her
Representative
office to
as well,
talk to her
yeah.
about. I mean, adding to that, I spent some time with Representative Jay Zhang the other night, really hearing him out on what he would like to see at Battle Creek. He'd rather see money spent on the community center and whatnot as opposed to putting it into the snowmaking equipment. And I was like, great idea, that's legit, you're right, it is a city thing. Let's talk about how we get it there. But this just sort of highlights the fact how many of these one-on-one conversations you need to have with people about all of these issues. And I think between Melissa and myself, working with Mark and his team, we could do a better job of even getting talking points for some of you so that you can help fight the fight for us on
And
this.
that's all I'm saying, is
Yeah.
because I was surprised at the passion behind her opposition to it, because of not knowing, and I knew that we had that. So, don't get me wrong, I'm really,
No,
really
we know
supportive,
you
and
are,
I'm talking to our legislators, and I knew Jay had some issues with it. We talked about that, but
So I
we
think-
can get
yeah.
this across the finish line, but we have to try to, whatever that information is, we need to make sure that we're getting it out there.
Appreciate
Double down.
Okay. I had the opportunity, thank you, to talk with Kelly afterward and really to assure her that we would get someone to talk with her about this. I had the sense, and actually heard directly from her, that this wasn't about the numbers, you know. It really wasn't about whether there were stories, you know, because she acknowledges that there are users who are diverse users. And I don't think she's looking to hear the numbers, but the good news is what she was looking for was how are the people of the community engaged, you know? If in fact this is about diversity and it's about equity, we have cultures in that community that do not just normally flock to this opportunity for cross-country skiing. How are we using this as an engagement opportunity to hear from that community how it meets their needs? And that falls immediately in line with the kind of work that we do, that we want to do. And I am certain that she's not against this project from talking to her, but she's very much for hearing what the community senses as our work to meet the needs of people in that area, you know, to supply us with our community engagement and equity focus. That's the work she's trying to make certain is being done, and it is the work we want to do. So as we address this, you know, I hope that we are really working to make certain that we're able to respond in that way. And yes, there are people who are engaged already, you know, who've come to us to say this is a great opportunity to serve communities of color on the east side, you know, who can use this facility and who can in fact use it as a community gathering opportunity. So I think that's what she was trying to hear. How does this fit into the culture, you know, rather than how do we fit the culture into it?
Well, let me echo some of that, because Jen and I heard some of that too. And boy, every legislator has their lens. They look at the same project, they come up with a different view of it, they have a different objection. And we're just gonna have to be able to deal with all of that. That's one of the things why I say that Carrie's getting very ambidextrous, because she's really learned how to put answers together for the different lenses. But, you know, the way I responded to that question, it says, was very much the same way. And, you know, these things are not built for any one culture, period. That's number one. It's for all of us. And it's up to the county to program these things, so we invite people in. We're building this for everybody. And we will need to do the kind of programming that welcomes everybody to come forward and check it out. I mean, I learned how to ski. I'm a Puerto Rican from New York City. That's a whole lot more difficult than being here. You know?
I like that some community engagement.
Yeah. So
I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, and I just really appreciate this whole conversation, and I think it can be transferred to other projects too. And I've actually told the ski community that talks to me, I said, we really need for you to be a really big face in this, because as a county, we have a lot of priorities, so I really need for you as a community to be out there talking to people. And I think they are trying that, but that's another thing I need to talk to Mark and about, I need to know what those efforts are, because we do want that community to really rise up, because we have a lot of projects, and we don't want the legislature to give us Battle Creek and then say, well, we gave you Battle Creek, and now we're not gonna entertain R&E Center or not entertain River's Edge.
Yeah.
So we definitely want it, and I think we just keep in mind all of these concerns that we've brought up, and we'll add them to the conversations we're gonna have with our legislators on a number of topics. So thank you all for that. And now do we wanna talk a bit about Rivers, or Jim has a question, and then, okay,
Yeah, I want to hear about Rivers after. Two things. One is, Jim's farm, he funded that. You don't have it listed here as.
You're right.
So I think we need to make that so it's accurate. You're listing what got funded or recommended from the
Yes.
governor. I think he did 7.1 or something,
Yeah.
the whole 7.3.
That's right.
And then I just want to talk a little bit about, what does it mean here where we're saying we're following the lead on Homes for All Coalition and the work after doing, because I do think this is going to be a housing year. The governor has 276, 60s, the number I've been using, but they got a $500 million proposal and some policy stuff, but I think the wind in the sail for housing is there. One of the things, that I've been talking about with partners and stuff is, we can't, this is a huge issue for us, whether it's roads, bridges, and transit funding, housing, education, but how we leverage and strengthen the work in partnership for the state to step up in these areas is, otherwise it ends up following on us and our community. And so I just wanted to raise that, we're saying following the lead for Homes for All Coalition. I don't know if we want to get stronger, take a position that we're supporting their package so that it's actually stronger, and you folks can work on that and be helpful in that, we can testify on that, or we feel comfortable with this wording to just kind of leave it the way it is.
is it,
Commissioner,
do you feel like,
Commissioners,
okay,
I would
go.
just, this we prepared solely for this meeting today. This isn't a public document that goes out. The state platform that you're familiar with, that's our public facing.
So if we taken
Yes.
a position, we're supporting.
And did we support Homes
Yes.
for All?
We passed
Yes.
Yep.
the 500 million, we've already done.
Yes.
Okay. So then why wouldn't we say that rather than saying following the lead of Homes for All?
Well, again, this is just for, this is really more of a tracking sheet. Our policy positions call out the Homes for All. I would envision we testify on that, we participate in, we meaning commissioners like you and others, just like last year, except maybe ramped up a little bit more. We use some of our power to place strategic calls to the speaker and folks like that to ask them to be strong on those sorts of funding requests. We can introduce our own bill. I don't know that it matters.
No, I think we need to just stay fully behind their bill and stay
Yep.
totally focused on what they're doing. It's a good bill,
And
it's
that's what-
aggressive and bold.
And that's what the following the lead meant. We're not running our own jackets, we're not developing our bill, we're letting them do that part and throwing our support behind it.
Excellent.
And then they'll tell us when they need us, and you'll know when they
Right.
need us for other things we need to do.
Okay.
Okay, that's a good call out, Commissioner Reiner.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right, and when you look at what the governor's, where he's focusing in, being in that meeting yesterday was pretty amazing, where the Lieutenant Governor Flanagan was chairing. So wherever we can align, we're gonna be better off. I'd like to switch to one other subject
Yeah.
where I think it's in alignment as well.
Yeah, is there anything else on homes for all? I mean, I think we all support that. Jim, we gotta get you a packet, but that's our final of our, that's what we approved in committee.
Madam Chair, can I just add one part to that?
Oh, yeah.
Just to connect to last session too. Because it's good to hear them coming out strong from the Lieutenant Governor. The frustration that I think we felt around that table last year, I'll just speak for myself, the frustration I felt last winter, okay, I didn't want to speak for anybody else, was we would hear that in the room and then did not see it translated to substantive action up at the Capitol in a way in which we saw them leading. And it became this thing of, why aren't you all up there getting this into the bill and then we're there to support you? And it's like, well, you kind of have a big seat in this whole game. And so my biggest hope is, and I take them that they want to be more engaged on the outset, that'll be the big key, is how they translate what you heard yesterday, hopefully going forward.
Well, and I can tell you that at that meeting yesterday, they acknowledged the fact that, yeah, we met and we talked and we all had these great aspirations, and then we did nothing. They acknowledged that right up front and said that's, and now, you know, then in January, there was funding that became available and stuff. And they said, you know, we cannot, not anyone around this table can stop the pressure, just keep on going. And what was it, Commissioner, said, you know, not a dime less, not a dime less.
Wow.
And so, just saying, you know, this is what we are gonna ask for, it's what we need, it's what you have to give us, and we're not gonna settle for anything less than that. So it was, and because I hadn't been there before that, I didn't know how strong that feeling was, but it was very clear around the table that they needed to get something done. And as I said this morning, I made it very clear around that table that Ramsey County had already done stuff without them. So, and I did mention some of the other things to know and all those other things, but thanks to Max, I can tell you, because it was great having the phone right there and going, okay, but now. But it is something that, as much as we can push with the rest of that group, we're all in better shape. The other issue, and I did bring it up, was the issue of the Emerald Ash Borer. And it's not a huge part of our agenda, but it is a huge part of the climate change and the energy issues that the governor is very concerned about. And it's, I think more so than any other governor that I can remember anyhow in recent history, he seems to be really, he zeroes in on what he wants, and if you are smart enough to align the things that you want, I mean, you've got all these other things, I mean, you've got a lot of things, but if you can align something and point to another thing that he really wants, climate change and carbon-free and, you know, all these things. The Recycling and Energy Center, I think that's one of the reasons that we like that, because we're really reducing the carbon footprint in what we're trying to do into the future. And I know we've got the R&E staff, or contract lobbyists and others that are really supporting this. The question came up about, well, why until 2030? And the response was, and why isn't wood waste in our solid waste master plan? So just in case you get those questions. First of all, the solid waste master plan is about municipal solid waste. And so it's, wood waste is not part of that, and so it wouldn't be in our master plan. But, you know, new technologies take a long time. And that's what we're talking about. So we're not talking about until the end of time, we're talking until 2030 when we have alternatives, as we know from the meeting down there. So I don't know, but I do know that the interest is there because of the environmental issues and climate change issues on both the R&E Center and the Emerald Ash Borer, wood waste and reforestation. So I don't know how, I just want to make sure that when we're talking to legislators about it, that we frame it that way. Doesn't change what we are doing, it's how do you frame it. And I think kind of, you know, in other things that we've got as well, if there's a way to frame it into through the lens, as you said, everybody has a different lens. If we can take whatever we've got here and put it into the lens that we know the governor is looking through, so that he understands the connection to it, the better we are on getting what we want. And that, I think, leads very well into River's Edge.
You know, one last,
Yeah.
I just want,
Okay.
and I know I'm sort of the, I always come up with the, I feel like I'm the naysayer in the group sometimes. But this is a presidential year. We are talking about the governor and the House. What about the Senate? What about what's viable on this?
Yeah.
Where are we gonna hit the wall on some of these things?
That's a really good question. I'd love to hear it. I'm gonna, yeah, okay.
Real briefly, I can take a stab at that.
Thank you.
We had the Senate Republicans out last week for a River's Edge tour. And it went pretty well.
Committee, so they were some Republicans and some Democrats. Wasn't
Some
it the Senate
Republicans, some
body?
Democrats, but it went pretty well. And we used the lens, if you will, of business development good for downtown. And really, this is the infrastructure, public realm, that we need to build that up from. So I'm hopeful. We have a meeting with Senator Senjum coming up, it's scheduled. We'll have a meeting with Senator Chamberlain. Other Republicans were open to the idea. I think there's a lot on here for Republicans to like, and frankly, we have a lot of transportation asks too that might be a different kind of angle into their kind of bonding bill. So,
Right.
Yeah, Jim. Oh, sorry, Raphael.
Who was the senator from Alexandria?
Ingo Britson.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with him. He was a whole lot more receptive than the rest of them. But I'm talking about the whole agenda. How are we doing, not just River's Edge, the whole agenda?
Gazelka and everything. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good question. Jim, do you want to weigh in on this? Or as
I
you're
do,
thinking
a little
about
bit. And I think it goes back to the opening here. Obviously, the Senate's saying not nearly as big a bonding bill, right? Maybe it's $1 billion, I don't know. That's a number they're comfortable with over a 2-year period that they've indicated. But, the more we can focus in on the fact that, you know what, we're 20% of this population of this state, 23, 24%, right? We're a part of the economic engine. When there's $1 billion bill, our delegation cannot be happy with $5 million chip.
Thank you.
We
I
need to
agree.
say, when there's a $1
Yeah,
billion
that's a good point.
bill, we need
Totally.
$100 million of that here, right? And so to your point, yeah, the Senate's not gonna be as easy as the House, but the more we get our delegation and
That's
folks
a really
thinking
good
about
point.
that, the days of us being happy with a couple of small bonding
Yeah.
wins and we celebrate and walk away are gone.
Yeah, this is a
We've
this is a
gotta
great speech we're gonna
expect
give at our
what,
legislative.
what
Yeah.
we contribute, we need that kind of level of partnership with the state.
Well, and that's what Jen and I
Yes,
have been saying, but my question is bigger than that. We're still I get that, and Jen and I have been giving that message with the people we've met. But there has to be a way, we need to start, we're not gonna win with the Democrats alone. Because we gotta get somehow to the Senate and convince some folks to come
Right.
along with our agenda.
Yeah,
I was just
totally,
gonna-
yeah. Tony.
I was just gonna add that it's really good to hear that the person from Alexandria
Yes, he was.
got this.
He got it,
because now
he
we
did.
are 23% of the
Yeah.
state's population.
Yeah.
But we are also the major entry point, the Twin Cities area, and Ramsey County as a very major part of that. For everybody who comes into this state, we're the major entry point. So what we do here affects everyone. We're the economic engine for the state. And so I think you're right, Jim, and during the session last week, we were able to just say, this is exciting work. It's a big lift for all of us, and we all need to stand up to this big lift.
But we need to be talking to Republicans too, is my point, not just Democrats.
Yes, that's true, that's true. Starting with our delegation,
Oh, of
we really
course.
need to be excited about this. We may not have the balance of Republicans there.
Republicans in our delegation.
Well, it's not just our delegation.
No, we
gotta-
don't have the balance. It's
We
exciting to
gotta
hear
go
that
to
somebody
that.
from
How
Alexandria.
many
is up there.
Republicans on the bonding committee?
Over half.
Over half.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. Yeah. So let's get this guy from Alexandria to help us.
Well,
pull
that's
those
the
other
point.
positions.
Right,
Because
Right.
less than half doesn't get it,
right,
even if you had
Right.
100% of it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right. These,
They've got to get
I like
justice
these
and
numbers to
fight.
give our delegation the strength to keep fighting, but we definitely need Republicans.
Yeah.
So I wanna talk about Riverside. I don't know how, I actually am gonna ask Chad a question just to prepare you, Chad. I just wanna ask you how you think Gibbs Farm is gonna factor into all this with what you've been doing, talking to legislators. But I do wanna talk, I mean, we wanna get to River's Edge too.
That's fine.
So should we ask Chad to quick come up and then we do River's Edge?
Sure.
Chad, just curious, you know, we love that it's in the governor's bill. We have a lot of support in our delegation. I think you've got Alice on board, which is always a good thing. And you know, you've got Jamie Becker-Finn and Mary Kunesh-Padina. I mean, we've got really good Ramsey County legislators that are, I think, really, I mean, I think our delegation loves this project, but I'm just curious if you want to make a few comments on what you think is happening. We didn't get a chance
By
to
the way,
ask you.
congratulations.
We didn't, yeah, and he just got married, so we're congratulations on that, just at the weekend.
Appreciate that. It's been a busy few weeks here. Yeah, we do have this, Senator Uyghur is the lead author in the Senate. He is on capital investment. Representative Hausman and Representative Lilly both signed on as co-authors of the bill in the House. We're working on connecting with Representative Dean Erdahl, Republican, who's the ranking Republican on capital investment, and he's strong on history. He likes it. So that's good.
Yeah, I love him for that.
I know him just a little bit through the history
lens.
world. So that's helpful. On the Senate side, not as connected there. So we're seeing that as being a potential challenge as well as, and I think you're right to be bringing that up, by the way. It's significant.
Absolutely.
But we're hoping we'll get Senator Chamberlain to sign on as a Ramsey County person. We also will serve students from 60 different legislative districts. So we've got letters coming in from each, hopefully every district, but I'm not, you know, Pollyanna about
That's a
that. But
good
we're
goal.
getting some from educators for how we serve their students across the state. So that's going to be positive for us. Our bill is big for us, not that big in the grand scheme of the $1 billion bonding bill. I personally don't think it's going to have a negative impact on the larger Ramsey County projects. I don't know if they might trade out something on that or not at the smaller end. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I
an
hope
interesting
not.
point. Jim?
Yeah.
The only thing I would say to that, you know, because it's a little bit of a delicate dance here, right?
Yes.
Is the more you can leverage support from other legislators
absolutely.
because of your base.
Yeah.
I mean, we got one Republican Chamberlain, and we're gonna be looking for them to find something, right? And I'm gonna argue really hard. We can get Chamberlain behind Riverfront, that's our #1 priority. I don't wanna do it at the expense of your project by any means, but so being a little bit strategic, working with the team about where you can leverage strength and where we can, so we're dancing smoothly together and not step on each other's toes. I think it's gonna be really helpful, especially in the conversation in this, and what that looks like.
Commissioner McDonough, that's a very good point. I think we have been working pretty well together on this. One of the things that we get to stress, and which I think is a key issue for almost every project in Ramsey County's docket, it's regional. It doesn't just serve this county. Gibbs Farm is a statewide asset, and we're proud of that. And we're going to keep making that point too. So we're being supportive of it. We've got support from some other historical organizations in the state that also do advocacy work with the Capitol. So we'll be getting some good support from that. But we are lining up, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, some more authors. We want as many as possible from every party. And we'll see how that effort goes. It's, as you know, challenging. The thing is, it's a good project, just like the rest of the Ramsey County docket, I think, is strong. So, and I see the regional importance personally. River's Edge is huge. That's a really big deal, and I'm really hoping that gets more traction. And I think that the recycling center, that's significant. And it supports environmental causes that I suppose the historical side we're not supposed to care about.
No, you are. You care.
And we partner really closely with the Dakota community, and it's kind of a tentpole issue for them, so we're on board with that. We think those are important. We'll say nice things, believe me. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're really hoping to see a lot of bipartisan support for our project, and we think it's one that people can sign on to without it being controversial for the most part, so.
Yeah.
And I just, especially for this one, I really would look to, if you can, I'll get some greater Minnesota
Yeah.
Republican senators, because I can tell you, I mean, Chamberlain doesn't live in Ramsey County. He's got such a small portion of Ramsey County that if you could get someone that, Republican, that is, that gets that statewide significance, it's probably better.
I agree with you, but we're gonna be getting as many people as we can.
Right.
Focusing on folks we think that have a good chance of being influential in this. And he has several important positions that would be helpful for us, I think. But yeah, we anticipate continuous game planning and strategizing as it evolves with John and your team. Nice to meet you, by the way. So we look forward to continuing that.
Right, and as much as you can get, right, outside supporters, I mean, it's like, it's not a Ramsey County project. I mean, we try to think of none of ours as just a Ramsey County project. This is all regional, but I think it's great that you're getting all those schools to let all those legislators know that this is something they want, so good job.
And the history buffs.
And the history buffs, right, so good luck with that. I mean, we love that project. Thank you, I just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation, right, about how we were gonna all work together and, just, yeah, not step on each other's toes, but really support each other. So we'll keep those conversations going. And I'm sensitive to the time. Do we have 15 minutes? Can everyone give 15 more minutes? We gotta spend some time on River's Edge. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you.
We'll do 15, I mean, yeah,
It's fine.
sorry, it's, yeah. So I definitely wanna have some conversation on this. So who wants to tee it up? Raphael, do you wanna talk a little bit about the meetings you've been having with legislators? 'Cause I know
Go ahead,
you've been-
Jennifer, both,
Jen,
let
why
me
don't you
just say
start?
that
Okay.
Jennifer, Josh, Carrie, I lost track of how many people we've met, a combination of all of us. We've met with quite a few folks, and we got quite a few on the calendar. Everybody has come up with a different objections, but every time we leave the room, they say, this is a great project, number one, and number two, many of them have said it's about time Ramsey County came up with something that was a wow to it, was powerful. So I think it's positive in that sense. The negative side is we're kind of last on the queue. A lot of these projects have been here for years. So there are those kinds of then each representative has a different lens, as I say, and picks up, some say you'll never get the railroads to agree to this. Another one brings up the crime in the streets of St. Paul. Why are you building this? That was the latest one. Why nobody's going to come and rent in this with all the crime in St. Paul? I mean, it's the whole thing, the whole 9 yards. Jennifer?
If I could just add to that, that was a good catch-up. We've met with about 15 legislators, I would say, out of our 25.
Yep.
As you know, they're part-time, so when we started last summer and into the fall, they were just really slow go in terms of coordinating schedules and people even being in the building. We're this close to having bill jackets. Senator Cohen and his staff agreed to let us use their name to get the bill authored and whatnot. Drafted it myself, felt really good about that. But so we'll soon have bill jackets, and those are the yellow and greens. I've talked with a number of you about this. We obviously don't have people signed on to those yet. I think we'll have no problem filling it up with co-authors. Commissioner Ortega and I have, flat out asked a few people to be our chief author. And when you ask somebody to be your chief author, you're really asking them to be your champion and to go to bat for you and to fight for you. And you guys all know the Ramsey County delegation. We only have a certain number of people that actually do that. You can laugh, but it's also pretty serious stuff when you sit in this place and try to figure out who's going to get 40 million or a version of $40 million for you at the end of the day. I just did a count this morning between all of the things that our legislative delegation has asked for already. There's 96 bills between the House and the Senate. So it's really about 46 asks out there already of things that people have asked for. All bonding requests. So the best example that's out there and the one we get the most, and it's funny how they ask, they say, well, you know, the city of St. Paul is asking for $55 million for the bridge. Like, have you thought about that?
Yeah.
And I think we would answer, we think about that every day.
If you add them all together, are they up to 20% of the bonding bill?
We need it.
I don't know, but it's, you guys all understand, and I think the staff behind me understand, we're dealing with a lot of other people's asks, and it comes out in weird ways. For example, Representative Hers, #1 project did not make it into the bonding bill. It was playwrights bonding dollars that she had asked for. So sometimes things come out sideways from people and trying to, not saying this was happening, but everyone wants their thing to rise above and succeed. So we're dealing with a little bit of that. I would just maybe close this part of it in that then the negatives, if you will, really kind of come around 3 things. Where are you at with the railroads? This is a lot of money coming in for the 2nd year. As you know, everything that was introduced last year, there was no bonding bill, so everything's still alive from last year. And then they ask how we're coordinating with the city, which we are. I know for a fact, I heard from Senator Kent's staff yesterday, as I was setting up an appointment, that her legislative assistant had sat down with Noel Nix, which is great, and Noel had talked about River's Edge as one of their kind of priorities or something they'd like to see picked up. So that's just a good example of when the staff are all talking to each other about exciting things like that. It helps us feel better.
Let me just say that I just finished writing a letter for Noel asked me in support of the bridge. So but here's the issue with all of this, and rather than going back and forth, and that is we got to change the framework by which these legislators sort of view this, because they're saying, well, you know, City of St. Paul is asking for the bridge money, and Ramsey's asking for River's Edge, and that's in St. Paul. It's almost like, and I, you know, I bring up, I says, wait a minute, Minneapolis got 2 stadiums, the Nicollet Mall, all within 4 years. I didn't hear any of this, you know. I said, I really don't care, we want them both, and I'm supporting both. Yeah, I mean, seriously, we gotta start changing the way these people think.
Jim, you had some, and then Victoria.
Well, and I maybe talk a little bit offline, but you mentioned 46 requests from Ramsey County partners. Do you have a list of that, or is it?
Yep, I have a book.
You said, I want the whole book, but I'd like to get a sense of what else is out there. I don't say all stuff, but I'd like to get a sense of what else is out there. I don't know if you've got an easy way to do it.
Yeah, no.
I do not want a whole book.
Yeah.
And you know what they do in the legislature, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but when you're a legislator, they give you a list of everything that's in your district. They don't care if it's city, county, state, they just count it yours. And they say, here's what's yours in the bonding bill. It doesn't matter which level of government it comes from. So, you know, that's how they tell legislators what they have. So we know that that's sort of something, they don't always make those decisions.
No, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, we all know this, but.
There's an intimidation about the number.
I
100
agree, and we
million.
should not
Big deal.
apologize for any of that. I love it, I think we should do a handout on that very issue.
What's our expectation?
20% of the, over 20% of the state's population, we need 20% of the projects. Okay,
Or we could just
Victoria, or we could
put it out there saying, what the hell?
Exactly, right. Victoria, you had a comment. Yeah. Oh, right.
Anyway, one other question that I had heard, and I didn't answer it correctly to begin with, was that about affordable housing. And I said, oh no, we've got $5 million, and, but what I heard from Carrie, and I need to know, and I think Trista also said it, because I was like, okay, what just happened here? I thought the $5 million wasn't for within that
That's
development.
right. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
spent there.
It doesn't
So-
have to be in the
Well,
development.
that's-
It can be outside.
No,
That's different.
what they said was two different things. But go ahead, Victoria.
Well, I know that, now I can't remember which legislator.
No, I know who it was. It was, well, Kali.
Kali.
Kali
Well,
was
yeah,
one that
she
asked
asked
about
it too.
affordable housing.
Maybe it was Connie, but I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
Regardless, somebody that was sitting in, and it
Amy,
did come
it
up.
was Amy, I think. Amy Wasowicz?
Wasowicz.
No, she was sitting next to me, and she,
Okay.
you know what, it doesn't matter, because it came from the other side of the table too,
Oh, okay.
literally the other side of the table. But the response that came back was that it was, because what I said was, if they're not gonna have affordable housing within the units, but because of the units, this is what I said originally.
Okay.
But if you look at the area and the number of affordable housing units.
Which is true.
It makes it, something that is acceptable. Plus, they've given us $5 million to do affordable housing, but not in those buildings. And what they heard, and what I thought I heard you say too, was that it was in those buildings.
So,
No,
Madam
let Carrie-
Madam Chair.
No, I'm saying.
So let's,
Then
Ryan's
Carrie-
gonna,
Carrie-
yeah,
Okay.
Ryan's gonna clarify
Go
some of
ahead.
this.
I think it's good for us all to practice on this too, so let me.
Carrie does a great
Yeah.
job of answering that question. Go ahead.
If I get this wrong, come on up, right away and down that. I heard two things from you that day, and I wanna make sure I get it right too, because this is always developing. The developer is committed to a $5 million affordable housing trust. How we spend that money is ultimately gonna be Ramsey County's prerogative at the
Right.
board level, and we haven't decided that yet. So on-site, off-site is a decision here, but it
That's
provides you
right.
with the flexibility to think
Yeah.
about broader community need, leverage the number of units.
That's
Okay.
right.
However, alongside that, there was a second thing mentioned that would deal potentially with on-site in partnership with the city of St. Paul, which is
Correct.
they may want to go farther as a city than we even go with that 5 million. And that's the preliminary conversations around potentially their own district around that site to finance additional affordable housing on site. But that's a city part of the conversation that goes outside of the 5 million, which therefore has both trust
Outside of the
and
5 million.
potentially
Wow.
on site.
Okay.
So
now,
you were right,
the one
Victor.
person that
Wow.
you really need to have
Yeah.
that conversation with is Trista.
Mhm.
Because she's
Yes.
the one that said to me, no, they changed it, Victoria. I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on.
Right.
We will follow up.
Right, we all need to, and
We need to have that information and have it be very clear.
Yeah, Tony.
So
Spoke.
I
Yeah.
do
You
agree
have to-
that we need to all understand this and be able to give that speech the same everywhere we go. And I wanted to just ask a qualifying question about affordable housing within the site. And I heard at the legislative committee meeting or at the legislative delegation meeting that there was this workspace or work something, I forget what the term was, it was a new one.
It's coming up to the
And I
table,
need
but
to
there's
know if that is about the work that St. Paul is doing, or if that is already there. Just to be sure we list out all the other
What do you mean
things
by
we need to know about.
workspace?
I'm gonna ask if Carrie will
Carrie's gonna
repeat
explain it
that.
right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Carter, and members of the board. I think the confusion is because it's still being explored, and we don't know to what extent we'll be able to do affordable housing on site. And so, but I do think it's important for messaging, because this is an important priority, not just to the board, but to, all of our legislators as well. When it comes to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Ryan is absolutely correct. That will be a $5 million set aside that the board will determine whether or not it can facilitate additional units on site or off-site. And if you recall, the vision plan and the housing assessment will help drive a lot of that decision-making, because we'll be able to see if there are pockets within St. Paul or suburban Ramsey County that are in desperate need of housing options, and so it can facilitate that. Or if we determine that we need to deepen affordability on site, we have that flexibility too. So parking that. In addition to on site, we are exploring with the City of St. Paul, we're putting together the information they need to do an assessment if a housing TIF makes sense on site. And so statutorily, you can do 20% at 50% AMI on site. However, the kind of TIF obligations that the City of St. Paul has with the Ford site and other projects are pretty extensive right now. So we don't want to commit to that particular financing tool, because we need to have a serious set aside with the City of St. Paul to make sure it makes sense for this project on this site. As far as the live work units go, those are typically
Live work,
settled
thank you.
around the 80% AMI level. And that's something that the developer is considering doing because it makes sense for the project and the Class A office and the retail to ensure that there are housing options available for those that are going to work within the other towers. And that is a cost that could possibly be, and I don't want to commit AECOM to doing this because they are exploring it too, but could be absorbed by the project.
Okay.
So as far as our conversation moving forward, we are exploring all range of housing options on the site because we haven't certainly had a decision time conversation with the board, and the developer hasn't committed to those levels just quite yet. But it's something that we'll continue to explore as we continue to vet the feasibility of the project with the railroad as well.
So
Wow.
those are
Really good.
three
Thank you.
areas of affordability that we can talk to, and it's really great to know that we don't know it all yet, but it's coming.
So we could spend a lot, yeah, Jim.
I hate to be a
No.
picker, but I guess sometimes I am. But to be just clear and to be clear on messaging, right, where there's confusion. So our language actually says, which could be used to expand housing options in St. Paul. Everything you said St. Paul, except for once. You said and/or suburban Ramsey County. Now, for some people, that's gonna be a big deal if we didn't say suburban Ramsey County.
Right.
We all just talk about St. Paul, but then all of a sudden someday we're spending money in the suburbs. And they're gonna say, no, that's not what you said we're gonna do. So I just wanna make sure we're really transparent and we're
Yeah.
not.
That's a good point.
We've gotta
Yeah.
make sure.
We
that
should
it's
say
clear.
Ramsey.
Yeah.
St. Paul,
That's right.
and we should say Ramsey.
That's right.
We don't.
We should say Ramsey
We don't have
County,
to
period.
call out the
Yep.
suburbs, but I just wanna make sure we're
Thank
being
you.
very
Yep.
transparent and accurate.
Intentional.
Because there's gonna
No,
be
you're
enough
right.
churn
You're right.
for you guys to deal with without us creating
Yeah.
our own churn.
And it's just to say Ramsey County, I think would be suffice.
Okay.
No, so I think,
I didn't realize it could be.
I didn't realize, I thought it had to
I
be
thought
within
it
a
could
5-mile
be.
rail, I thought it had
And I
to be
was gonna
within a
ask,
5-block area, that's what I've been telling people, I thought it had to be within a
For what?
certain amount.
The
For the 5
bottom line
million,
here
it
is
had to be
we
used
all
close.
need information on
Had to
this
be used
because-
close.
No,
Okay, well, that's good information for all of us, so so I'm gonna ask the will of the board, so, love these discussions, we all learn a lot, we all need to continue to learn a lot about these. Do you like having, the idea of having a legislative bonding, meeting, informational meeting on the bonding specific projects, or probably I guess we could call it any of our projects, but you're thinking Sandy might call a meeting, maybe just to talk about bonding projects, or that's what we're noodling around and we help her call that meeting or whatever. But that would be for legislators and hopefully a lot of us who can be there and staff to talk about our bonding projects. If there's other things we need to meet about, a continuation of our legislative delegation meeting, we could have another meeting on that, and we can ask our chairs to do it, or we could just call it. Just depends on how many meetings we want to have with our legislators, and how we think that would help, or whether it can happen. And so that may be one question I'm asking, but Jim and Victoria, yeah.
So I think being more strategic about just not having this as a one and done with the meeting with the legislators is really gonna be important. But I think we need to tie it, right? So do we meet like a week or 10 days before the first deadline, so we can get on the same page about how do we make sure all our stuff is in that first deadline, right? Or how we're timing it so that there's actually kind of a takeaway, like, your job is to get our stuff in for this deadline so that we stay alive to the next deadline. That's what I'm just throwing
Yeah,
out.
and we
so
can
that
think
there's-
about
it's
timing
more
on that,
strategic, But
yeah.
actually, an action plan, so it's not just meeting, it's actually kind of developing an action plan. How we're supporting each other to help make sure our projects are a part of the final bills.
And we can talk, well, let's see, Victoria, you want to add to this, and then I'm going to let Ryan and then Jen, yeah.
Well, and I'm not as worried about setting up meetings with legislators as far as a group meeting, I guess I would take the lead from our staff that are dealing with them, if they want to get together and talk to us. But being strategic about who we're meeting with and what we're doing and who we expect to be our champion. I mean, this is a short session.
Totally.
And so the time that they spend in a meeting, in a group delegation meeting with us is time they could be spending getting our work done. And so I kind of think that having the group meeting again isn't necessarily the way to go, unless if a legislator wants to do that, if Sandy Pappas wants to do this, of course we should work with it. But I don't think, my opinion is that we don't need to call another delegation meeting as Ramsey County unless you go, hey, we gotta meet. But I think being really strategic about who our champions are, who we need to bring along, whatever information we need to get out, especially to the commissioners, so that we're saying the same things when we're talking to legislators. But I think we really just need to be strategic because, I mean, this is all about the bonding bill, and it's a short session, and let's get her done.
Yeah, Ryan and then Jen.
Just Madam Chair, from the scheduling side too. So we do the 8-week workshop look-ahead planning with the chair all the time and with staff to make sure we know what's coming up, and through that conversation always know what's happening. So I won't speak to the ledge delegation specifically, but in terms of how we plan for it around here, I think the open ask to both Jen and Melissa, working with John and Karen, is to say, as things start to come together, wherever we see weaknesses, where we as a collective might need to talk about something, bring clarity or bring it, how do we map that onto that calendar? And we intentionally leave flexibility every month to be able to fit in conversations, and because of the recent conversations that keep Tuesdays open and stuff, we will make that space fit. It also gives you a vehicle for where if you do need to engage at the Capitol in some sort of a delegation meeting or a half delegation meeting, we can leverage that accordingly. So from a scheduling side, working through the chair and with these folks and then with the ledge chairs, I think we do have a structure where as it comes into focus with deadlines and dates, we are ready as you can be to move in a planful way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Jen, did you want to say anything?
The only thing
else?
I would add to that, I really thought it worked well last year, how most of you text and read emails real regularly, and we had great access in getting people up to testify quickly. Hanging, when you come up and hang around the floor sessions and pull people off the floor, I think those are way more effective than trying to get everyone in a room where staff, we're not going to get no one's going to give us the ability to get a hearing room and use up their time and get another delegation, other than maybe that one bonding meeting that we talked about.
I think that would be just, because we committed to sort of doing it, we'll just do one more, but then we won't do them after that. I mean, then I think we are gonna have to resort to, then we will just do the call outs. I think it's good to have them all in, as many as we can in the room. They don't even actually know who all their own delegation meeting members are. I mean, it was interesting. They're like, they're in Ramsey County? I'm like, yeah, you have a big group of people in Ramsey County. So, I mean, it was very interesting. So I think because we said we would do it, and if I think we can focus it around bonding with Sandy Pappas, but then otherwise, I agree we should, I think it's good to be in our individual meetings, and as much as you can, let Jen and Melissa know when you're gonna be down there, so that we can just keep that, we can keep that information tallied about who we're talking to and when, and so that when they're talking to them, they have some knowledge of that. But thanks everyone for always being available and to be down there as much as we are. I mean, I think it just says a lot about our county board.
Could you do me a favor, or probably all the commissioners a favor, and just resend both of your contact information?
Yes.
That way, because I don't know that I have yours in my
Yeah, absolutely.
And the cell phone.
And do we have all this information electronically, or do we have to look it up on, it'd be sort of nice if we, I don't know about you all, but I wouldn't, I mean, I have it in my, I don't want to go on the board docs to look for this information that we're, our platform, but it'd be nice if we had that online, we could
We
just
actually have a
reference it.
government relations page, I think, on RamseyNet.
Okay.
But we can send it to you electronically.
Yeah, just some of these things, and we
can send
I
you a
think we
link.
should all really, really look at these handouts we're giving out, and if there's anything we should be highlighting in a greater way or not highlighting, I think we should
It's on the website. It's
note
on the
about
website.
that. Well, Jim,
Well,
yeah.
now that you mentioned that, one
So-
last,
And it's on our
Yeah.
website.
And it's on our website, right. Okay, great, great.
one last thing, and that is, and Jen and I talked about this, and that is, we are asking money for the public realm. We're asking money
Yeah.
for the park, and we want a 50-50 partnership. The towers, and I've told this to the developers too, I said, I'm not going up there selling your towers. You could, on the model, I would like to see those towers to be tiny and the park to be big. Not the other way
Tiny
around.
towers, big park. I like that, yeah.
So maybe a different sheet, like this just talked about Rivers Edge, but have a different, like, of our ask, which is public realm. I mean, I don't know. But I don't know how we present
We've
this.
overcome that. The first
Okay.
objection we got from everybody is, are we subsidizing these towers?
I know, that's what I'm worried about. Yeah.
And now that's
Yeah.
over, that's
We have-
over.
we-
But let's not
Okay.
just reinforce.
Jim and
the
then
part.
Tony, and then we're gonna, and then Jen again. So Jim, Tony, then Jen. Jim.
I think that's really important piece, right? So they know they're not.
Right.
But actually, I mean, again, kind of to get the sense of urgency, why all of a sudden we're here, is the fact that this public investment will get us 2 towers. And
Yes.
the more we can communicate that,
Yeah.
it'll get us
Remember-
$250 million of private investment in this community right now. So you turn that around, this isn't about us supporting the private development.
No,
This is
right.
about us, the developer, it's about us actually bringing in $250 million for $40 million
That's an important
partnership.
piece.
Yes,
And the
but-
more we
but-
can communicate that
Yeah.
and have that lens, I think helps to
Right.
solve a number of the issues that we've talked about.
Yeah, but let me tell you, most people learn, or a lot of people, I shouldn't say most, and especially legislature, it's all visual.
Right, so this,
A
yeah.
picture's worth 1,000 words, so at least, I totally agree with you, Jim, but the part gets diminished, and that's what we're asking money for. And so, we should go in reverse. Here's the big part, and by the way, it gets us to 5,000 jobs,
Right,
and
'cause
it
it-
gets
yeah.
us this and that.
Yeah, I agree,
Because
okay.
that's every time, that's the first question.
I
Are we
agree, people,
subsidizing-
right.
Are we subsidizing the buildings?
And that
That's
true,
true,
it's
and-
immediately the truth.
And so Jim, you're okay, Tony, you had a
Yeah,
question, and
yeah,
then
thank you.
Jen?
So I just wanted to very quickly, and I don't need you to spend a lot of time, but to address the bullet for addressing racial disparities in out-of-home placements. Talk a little bit about where that is. Again, we can hear more later. but-
So, we had a meeting with Paul Allwood last week, and we discussed that the coalition had developed sort of a 4th version of the bill at the end of last session. We found that version of the bill. Yep, it should be in your email.
Okay.
Haven't set up a meeting yet with the coalition, but in talking to a few members, I'm getting inklings that that version was not the full Peace in the Valley group consensus that we had hoped it would be. In other conversations with Representative Moran, she has really focused on this like 14 pill package that DHS is looking at that takes pieces of the legislation. My understanding is she's planning to introduce those bills. It's not clear to me yet what she's planning for them to happen on the Senate side, but I'm working on getting some time with her committee administrator to really talk through, are they gonna have time to hear those bills? Do they have a prioritization for them? Sort of like, what's the path as we go forward? So I think we do wanna support Representative Moran and what she wants to do with this language.
All right, and you know, I would just have one thing to say about that, and to share with board members that it is really very important that we liaison with Moran's office, because she's leading in that area, and it can make a very big difference as to what can succeed at the legislature. I think we also here at Ramsey County, because of the strategic plan that we have and the commitment that we've made to community, you know, to ensure that we are leading with community and not just for community, but really truly with community, that we lean in to understand what we are learning from our community engagement sessions, and that have a bearing on how we move forward. I think we need to be informative to Representative Moran's office also, as to the support that may exist in a coalition for moving forward on a bill that is engaged with community and with the community support already. So I would just want us to be sure that we're informing the representative as we look at coalitioning with her to ensure that there is good, positive movement in this area of addressing racial disparities in out-of-home placement.
And speaking of these, oh, yeah.
14 bills though, what are we supposed to do with that?
Right,
So,
Support what's going on here, but we have to
Yeah.
I know
We have to be involved.
yeah, we all need to get going, but I did want to say, Alice did bring up the transportation funding, that, Republicans really want to put, transportation funding in the bonding bill. They want to pay cash for this, when really we should be using other methods. And I know we're working on that. So I didn't know if we needed to be, educating our legislators on any of this, or if there's anything we can do. Thank you, Brian, for being here. But if there's, I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't at least mention how important transportation funding might be. But do you get a sense of where it's going to be at this session, as far as? We don't know where it's going to be. I'm not actually looking at Jennifer. I'm not looking at Brian. I'm looking at Jennifer. Okay. About anything. We just. I think the only way we're going to see it is in the bonding bill, right?
Well, everybody's all over the map
Right.
with the people we've sat.
Okay.
I have Pinto, who says, I want to champion Riverview, I just want to get money, that's my focus, I support River's Edge, but Riverview is my baby, I'm the offer, and I'm going to get Rainice. He doesn't care where he comes from. Okay? You talk to Alice says it belongs in the transportation bill, it belongs in the gas tax, and blah, blah, blah.
So our legislators
You
are
talk
not
to
in
all
unison.
of them, they're all on a different page. So
Okay.
you tell me I don't know, that's a whole lot of task, I think.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm open, I'm just telling you what I've observed.
yeah.
And Madam Chair, I would just say, as issues come up, that's why we wanted to create the venue here to be able to bring them up. But while it remains this unclear, the pontification, I don't feel comfortable that I know enough to give you enough yet.
Yeah.
But it's there, and that's why as things come together, we can bring it back.
Yeah. Okay. It came up, Alice brought it up in the
she brought it up
delegation
to me
meeting,
too.
yeah. So, and it's just about where the funding for transportation comes from. And we should be careful not to pay cash, yeah.
Yeah, I could say a lot more, but I
Right.
think right now,
Yeah.
until there's an actual bill,
Okay.
right? We should be supportive of anything we can do to bring dollars into Ramsey County, whether it's supporting Riverview or
Okay.
Gold line,
or
whatever.
anything, right? And
All right.
I don't wanna, I know where Alice wants to go. She doesn't
Yeah.
want us to take that money because she wants to force a transportation bill.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work. It's not a strategy that's gonna work.
Okay.
And we can't afford to hurt ourselves by agreeing
By
to that strategy.
being,
Until
even
there's
if
a
we agree with it, we
transportation bill
shouldn't.
for us to actually weigh in on it, I
Okay.
think we need to take every dollar that we possibly can, any way we can.
Well, I'm happy I brought it up, because I was unclear, because I think we don't disagree that we would rather have it come over here, but you're right, we can't say no to it over here, even if we agree it should be coming out of here. Okay, well, I'm glad that's clear in my mind too. But I really appreciate, frankly, I just think all of you are amazing here, staff and members, about all the work we are doing on this, and you have all been just great about being down at the legislature, continue to keep in touch about that. You've been great about letting legislative team know when you have something you want to bring out, so we're not getting surprises like at the board meeting, which we haven't started quite yet. But, we really appreciate that. We aren't gonna try and handle issues by surprise at a board meeting, but, bring it up to our team, in the week before. And just thanks so much to Jen and Melissa for all of your work, and we'll just all stay in touch, and we just hope this is a good year for us at the legislature. And we'll just not apologize for anything.
We're not gonna say, let's hope this is a
No,
good
no,
year.
it's going to be.
We're gonna make this a good year.
You're right, this is going to be a good year. Thank you for that. Thanks, everyone, thanks,
We
Ryan,
adjourn?
Tony. Thanks, yeah, adjourn.